Well, good morning everyone. Welcome back to the cabin. It's a little bit on the chilly side this morning, so I thought I would go ahead and build a fire, warm my hands up a little bit before I get started. Actually, I got a lot of these pieces left over from last week, cutting the last three pairs of rafters, so that I can cantilever over the edge of my overhang and make it a lot more sturdy. What I would have preferred to have done was to be able to take the upper beam and extend on out over the end, but I'd only have the ability to cut 16 feet, and that's kind of what I needed for the tractor to be able to go in. Now I could have scarfed a couple together, but I decided not to do that. That's a whole lot of work. So what I'm going to do is, just like I said, cantilever the end over by cutting the notches and placing the 2x6 down the inside of those, and that will allow me to be able to put the sheathing on top, and it will help to support the overhang. Now the next section, which will be this area right here, will actually be the workshop. This is kind of a multi-purpose building where I'll have the tractor parked on this end. This will actually be a wood shop, and then right next to it will be the new sawmill area. This area right here is only 12 feet wide, which is actually going to be the workshop, which is the next section. Of course, the whole building is 18 feet in depth, but I'll be able to get an overhang at least 2 feet on each side, since it's only 12 foot on both roof lines. Now the next section after that will be the new sawmill area, and it will be about 28 feet long. So all three of them are basically different, but this section right here will allow me to be able to at least get a couple of posts in up on top. Now you're going to come up with lumber that's warped. That's just the nature of the beast. So I didn't throw them away because they can be used. They can be used as braces. Also, if the warp is not too bad, you can actually cut small sections out, which is what I'm going to do. Small 6-foot sections, and I'll still be able to use those up there with just a little bit of prying. I can get them in place, and they'll last and they'll work just as good as if I cut it and it was straight, but it can't be too bad of a bow in it. But anyway, like I said, for bracing and other things, these will really come in handy. I'll tell you, that sawmill is probably one of the best investments I have made in my life. I paid $6,300 for it, 4 years ago now, and it has built everything up here on this homestead. I tell you, just owning a sawmill, the possibilities are endless. Cut any type of material that you want. You can cut for other people. You can actually make money doing that. You can just about do anything with having a sawmill. Now you can see the wooden pegs that I drilled and placed into those rafters. So the anchoring system for the rafters up there, I've got them toe-nailed on each side down to the center beam. Plus I've got one on each side with a very large head on it. It's an industrial screw. It's a 5/16 by 4 inch. I've got one on each side, and then I drilled and put in 5/8 oak dowels inside that as well. So that joint, even though I lapped them side by side, that joint is not going to be able to pull away from that center beam going in either direction, because your rafters do put pressure on the outside walls. It will hold that in there. So it might be a little bit overkill, but it's better to go ahead and do it now than it is to try to go back in and do it later. You know, I didn't have this thought in my head, but just standing here looking, I may be able to get the tractor and the four-wheeler parked side by side in here, since I made it 16 feet wide. I think the tractor's really only 7 feet wide, which will still give me, 9 feet left, but I can't get over too far because I need to be able to open the doors on each side. But if I get the tractor back there far enough, I might be able to park the four-wheeler a little bit ahead of that, still be able to get the doors open and have plenty of room. So that was just an afterthought, but it's kind of a nice thought. I'll tell you, I am really pleased with the way that this poplar turned out by hewing out these posts and beams. and then burning it and putting the oil on it, it almost, I've said this before, it almost turns out just like the pine that I treat. But by doing that, not only preserves that wood, but it also has such a great look to it, especially after hewing it out. Now, I could have not hewn it, the braces, I didn't hew the braces, I just left those plain, because some of my joists, which you're not going to end up really seeing most of them, that are actually the beams that the floor joists butt into, I didn't hew those out either. So some things have been hewn and some haven't, but I'll tell you, I really like the way that they turned out. It was a lot of extra work, but there's just no comparison in having the hewn look as opposed to the smooth look. You know, I had a lot of comments on that hewing, and not only through the videos, but just different people that have come up here, you know, and they've said, tell you what, you really have to have patience to be able to do something like that. Well, yes and no. You know, if you're the type of person that doesn't have patience, you're not going to have patience with anything, right? So you can move from this to that and still be all jacked up and anxious about the next thing, you know. So my suggestion is just stay there, do what you need to do, finish the job, and move on. That way you are still productive and you know, achieve the look that you're wanting. And you know, I've mentioned that before, it took about 2 hours per beam or per post to be able to hew that out. But that was 2 hours well spent, because like I said, there's no comparison in the look of that old-timey aesthetics as compared to the smooth, just, you know, no character to it at all. So yeah, for years to come, those will be up there and people will come in and say, you know, well, this was a really good job. And of course, you know, I'm sure that there's lots of other folks that could build it a lot better than I can, but I'm having a lot of fun, and it is turning out, you know, to look old-timey, which was my intentions to start with. The cabin that was built up here, you know, we use that radiant barrier, but you know, the inside stays just as warm as it can be because I believe of that radiant barrier. It reflects radiant heat. It's not a moisture barrier. I had so many comments about that foil looking stuff that I put in there. It is not a moisture barrier because it's got holes in it every half-inch square. It's got a pattern, so it breathes. It is a radiant barrier. So any heat in the wintertime, like it comes from a stove or whatever source of heat that you got on the inside, as it spreads out like this, it will hit that radiant barrier and it's reflected back in. I've even got it underneath on the floor joist, so it's reflected back towards the inside from where it came from. On the opposite side of that, in the summertime, you got heat from the sun, which is trying to find its way into the house, but when it hits that, it's reflected back out. I've even got it up in the roof. So in the summertime, the house overnight, you know, being up here in the mountains, it cools down a lot. In the evening, about 10 degrees difference than in town. And even during the next day up until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the house will stay cool. So just a little bit of movement with a fan in there, it's almost like you've got air conditioning. So yeah, the technology today is a big game changer. So I will tell you this, if you decide that you're going to build any kind of a structure, if you're going to do it timber frame style, you might as well plan on it taking about twice as long. You know, if you do things conventional and stick frame, just, you know, bang bang and it's up and you're done. But on a timber frame, you've got to plan all of that out. You've got to measure, cut, dig out all your mortises, make your tenons, make sure that they fit together. You got to put the structure up to where everything fits together like it should. You can't get one ahead of the other. And then you've got to go in there and stick frame in between that, if that's what you're going to do, close up the walls or whatever. And it's going to take some time, but I'll tell you what, I really like the buildings that are done like that. I think that you're going to like this workshop once we get it done, because I've got some ideas that I'm going to build it a little bit different than I did the cabin up there, and I think you're going to like the looks of it, not only from the outside but from the inside as well. You know, it wasn't long ago that I had a comment about somebody saying that, you know, they were elderly and they lived back in the days where buildings were made that weren't insulated very well, and they were cold. And the housing today that we have is a lot warmer, and I do agree with that. Even cabin building, a timber frame building, whether you're using square timbers or round timbers, it's come a long way. I'm sure you have seen a lot of videos out there where they will lay a log and then they use like a piece of what appears to be like felt that they will lay in that joint, which seals that crack, and no air can actually come through there. Back in the day, I don't think they even thought about that. They may have packed it with moss or put chinking in there or something like that, something that was hard, and a lot of times, you know, things settle, they crack, and then you would, you know, get a breeze coming through or something like that. But a lot of the technology that we've got today, you're able to use that benefit and still build things like they did back in the day, but actually seal it up to where there is not a lot of air movement from the outside to the inside. So folks, join us tomorrow as we continue working on this timber frame workshop down here, the tractor portion. If you like this kind of building, I want to invite you to watch the chicken house build. You can click up here in the top right hand corner of when we started and built our own chicken house here for the homestead. Guys, thanks for watching. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you back up here at the cabin again next time.